Hey, welcome back to the Tech and Gaming YouTube channel. So we are going to talk about the CPU user benchmark results of the i310100. So let's get started. So for this test we used an Intel i3 10th generation 10100 with 8 gigs of Vengeance LPX DDR4 3000 MHz RAM, which runs at 2133 MHz due to the motherboard and CPU limitations. And not to forget that we also used the GIGABYTE H410M S2 motherboard for this test, and we have only one 8GB RAM stick and no GPU. So we ran a quick test in CPU user benchmark while monitoring the temperatures. So let's come to the main part. We tested the benchmark twice, once when we kept a high performance application and once with no background apps running at all. In the first test we performed when there was no apps running at all. So we faced no high temperatures and the max temperature during the benchmark was 52 degrees Celsius, which is quite normal, and it was running at 100% CPU loads. So according to userbenchmark.com, we found out that our PC is working above expectations and scores 73%, and our CPU scores about 89% benchmarks, and which is excellent according to user benchmark. And as we have no graphics card, we got a terrible score of the Intel iGPU, of course, which scored around 5.2%. Then with this CPU on our SSD, we got 100% outstanding benchmark, and hard disk, the Western Digital Blue 1TB hard disk scored 108%, which is also outstanding. But as we have a very high memory frequency RAM, which is the Vengeance LPX DDR4 3000C16 8GB RAM, it was scoring way below because our CPU and the motherboard cannot take more than 2133 MHz. I think it was also mentioned in the Gigabyte that it could not take more than 2666 MHz, but I don't know why it is at 2133 MHz. As this is just a CPU benchmark, so we are just focusing on the CPU part of it. And talking about the memory latency ladder, as you can see the graph, I don't know about these graphs at all and how to compare them, but for me these graphs are decent and is okay. So we've already stated that the RAM is actually bottlenecked for this setup, but it's working fine with this setup and I have had no memory failures till now. In the second test, we performed the benchmark with a background app named Filmora X Editor. It took around 800 to 1GB RAM and also a bit of CPU usage too. So the userbenchmark.com site says that it scored 70% and it also has detected the suboptimal background CPU usage, which is high, so at 17%, and it also tells that our CPU was scoring 88%. And as we are talking about just the CPU benchmark part of it, it scored 88%, and in the last benchmark we did without any running apps, it scored around 89.8%. But there is also one scenario I'm giving you, that while I was running the benchmark for the third time with Google Chrome, the performance significantly reduced. It got reduced, and even user benchmark was showing that the PC was performing below expectations. This is what we have for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more updates. Subscribe to Tech and Gaming. What do you think? Is the i3 10th generation any good? I think it is a good CPU for beginners and will work good with the games and a few editing apps. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.